Hello. Hello. Hello everyone. Welcome to another stream with your man Jan the man. Can you guys hear? Can you guys hear clearly? Is there any echo? Is there any music? Is my voice okay? Now, where did we live last time? Oh wait, before that, have you guys prepared your tea? Hot tea? I have myself some peppermint and lemon. Peppermint lemony tea. A nice evening where you can settle yourself down with some tea and listening to Jan the Man talking to you how to create your hero, you know. We're in 75 page already. I think that's quite a good progress we have. We still have 350 more. But that's okay. That's okay. Don't have to feel like, oh, it's so bad. There's 300 more pages. How you gonna finish it, Jan? How you gonna finish it? Well, we just do it. We just do it. Okay? We don't dilly-dally. We don't procrastinate. We do it. Alright? We do it. Now, this is part of the character. The part of the wait. Let me hear the voice. Everything's okay, right? Yeah, everything's okay. Everything seems okay. Shall we begin? Shall we sip another cup of tea before we begin? That's refreshing. That's very nourishing. Relaxation, you know, relaxing. I might even have another sip because it's so nice. It's actually quite hot. I'll let it cool down first, you know, become lukewarm tea instead of very hot tea. Today I won't go too long. Alright, I'll finish the character chapter and then talking about moral argument, and I think I'll stop there for today. Just do one chapter and then finishing the character, and that's about it for today. I want to keep it short, and because I got actually quite a lot of things to do, and I don't want to spend too much time. Yeah, I think I'll just stop there. Moral argument. I think one chapter at a time is good, because if you put in too much content into a single live stream, you won't get anything. You gotta savor it, you gotta just take it in some time, reflect, meditate on it, and really see how do you write, and it's all about writing also. And like I keep on telling you all this kind of thing from the book, it's only like half of it. The next half of it is actually for you to really write it, really think about it, really think about character, really think about creating your hero. So without further ado, all right, we begin. Okay. Creating your hero. Okay, creating your hero. Hero is gender neutral. Okay, I'm not saying like, oh, hero means, wow, why is this guy so sexist? There's no such thing as hero or heroine. I mean, there's heroine, but I like to think hero as gender neutral. Okay. Let's just start lah, Jen. Hiya. Creating your hero. Creating a main character, okay, on the page, that has the appearance of a complete human being is actually very complex one. And it requires a number of steps. Like a master painter lah, okay? Like a master painter. You must build this character in layers. Should I do this kind of commentary instead of just reading, add a little bit more life to the reading session? Or you want it to be more calm, cool, and just relaxing, and you don't really know, but at the end of the day, you're here to become a master storyteller. You have to become a master storyteller. So I gotta say things like how you get it. So like a master painter, you must build this character in layers. Happily, you'll have a much better chance of getting it right by starting with the larger character web. So we were talking about the character web. If you don't know about the character web, I also don't really know what, even though I read about it. But character web is basically like you have to create a few other characters among your character lah. Okay, whatever character web you construct will have a huge effect on the hero that emerges, and it will serve as a valuable guide for you as you detail this character. So, creating your hero. Step 1. Meeting the requirements of a great hero. The first step in building your hero is to make sure he meets the requirements that any hero in any story must meet. Now, these requirements all have to do with the main character's function. He is driving the entire story. He is driving the whole entire story, not half of it, not little bit, the whole entire story. Now, you gotta make your lead character constantly, I say constantly, fascinating. What is fascinating? Well, fascinating is interesting. You gotta make them unique. So, any character who is going to drive the story has to grab and hold the audience attention at all times. Not sometime, or not any time, but at all times. There must be no dead time. No dead time. No treading water, no padding in the story, and no metaphors to hammer home the point. Okay? Whenever you lead the character, whenever your lead character gets boring, the story stops. One of the best way to grab and hold an audience attention is to make the character mysterious. Show the audience that the character is hiding something. This forces the passive audience member to reach out. Oh yes, mommy. White shirt better. Okay, I wear more brighter colors, and I look fresh. Yes, I'll take note. And actively participate in your story. He says to himself, that character is hiding something and I want to find out what is it. So, if the character, right, is hiding something, like some past or some feelings, that's a good story already. Because you as an audience, you want to find out what is it. Now, second, make the audience identify with the character, but not too much. Not too much. Identify is a term that many people toss around but few define. We say that the audience should identify with the hero so that they will be emotionally attached to the character. But what does this really mean? People who think you create a character, right, by adding traits also think that audiences identify with such characteristics as background, job, dress, income, race, and sex. Wait, people who think you create a character by adding traits also think, people think that you create this character, right, by adding traits. Also think that the audience identify with such characteristics as background, job, dress, income, race, and sex. Nothing could be further from the truth. If audiences identify with specific characteristic, no one will identify with anyone because each character will have too many traits that audience member doesn't share. Audiences identify with a character based on two elements, okay? His desire and the moral problem he faces. In short, desire and need. This book always say desire and need. The first two of the all-important 7 structure steps. Okay? Desire drives the story because the audience wants the hero to be successful. The moral problem is the deeper struggle of how to live properly with others, and is what the audience want the hero to solve. Be aware that the audience should not identify too much with the character, or they will not be able to step back and see how the hero changes and grows. Again, Peter Brook's admonition to the actor is also excellent advice. This is excellent advice, okay? When the actor sees himself in relation to the wholeness of the play, he will look at his character's sympathetic and unsympathetic features from a different viewpoint, and in the end will make different decisions from those he made when he thought identifying with the character was all that mattered. So it's good for the actors and actresses to know that this person has backstory has has ways that he can identify with, like a villain okay. Say for example Thanos there is also a way that you can identify with him, like he wants to kill half of the population because he has his reasons also. He wants it perfectly balanced as all things should be. But also another end for the heroes, they will be thinking like, why you want to kill everybody, like innocent people? It's not fair. But to him, it's fair. Something like that. In chapter 8 plot, we'll look at how you distance the audience from the hero at appropriate time at the story. Now this is where you can think about how to make it like a point where you can just stop the audience from identifying with them. Plot. Another chapter. Okay, third one. Make the audience empathize with your hero, not sympathize. Sympathize. So, make the audience empathize with your hero, not sympathize. Everyone talks about the need to make your hero likable. Having a likable, sympathetic hero can be valuable because the audience wants the hero to reach his goal. In effect, the audience participate in telling the story. But some of the most powerful heroes in stories are not likable at all, like Batman. Yet, we are still fascinated by them. And even in a story with an initial likable hero, this character often brings to act immorally, to do unlikable things as he begins to lose to the opponent. Yet the audience doesn't get up in the middle of the story and walk out. So, what's really important is that audiences understand the character, but not necessarily everything he do. To empathize with someone means to care about and understand him. That's why the trick to keeping the audience interested in a character, even when the character is not likable or is talking immoral actions, is to show the audience the hero's motive. So always show why your hero acts as he does. If you show the audience why the character chooses to do what he does, they understand the cause of the action, in this case empathy, without necessarily approving of the action itself, sympathy. Showing the hero's motive to the audience doesn't mean showing it to the hero. Often the hero is initially wrong about his true reason for going after the goal and does not discover his real motive until the end of the story. At the self-revelation. Okay, so showing the hero's motive to the audience doesn't mean showing it to the hero, you know. Often the hero is initially wrong about his true reasons for going after the goal and does not discover his real motive until the end of the story, when he's self-reflecting. Okay, fourth point. Give your hero a moral as well as a psychological need. So we talked about this in the last stream. So the most powerful characters always have both a moral need and a psychological need. Remember the difference, Okay, a psychological need often affects the hero. A moral need has to do with the learning to act properly towards others. By giving your hero a moral as well as a psychological need, you increase the effect the character has in the story and therefore increase the story's emotional power. Okay? That's step 1. Step 1 got 4 steps. Now, let's sip tea together. Wonderful. The right, perfect temperature of how your tea should be. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Creating your hero. Step 2. Character change. Character change, also known as character arc, character development or range of change, refers to the development of a character over the course of the story. It may be the most difficult but also the most important step in the entire writing process. Difficult, you know. Yes, hot tea is very good. I am drinking peppermint and lemon. It says it will help you to relax. So I think that's a very good one. Peppermint and lemon. But sometimes drinking tea will make you very dry in the mouth. So I have to drink a cup of water after drinking tea. But cannot drink too much also, because if you drink too much, it's quite heaty. Like it will, I don't know, whenever I drink tea, right, the 個口好乾 Anyway, character development is another one of the buzzwords, like identifying with the character, that everyone talks about but few understand. Let's return for a moment to the standard approach to creating character. That's where you imagine a lone person and you try to list as many traits about him as you can. You tell a story about him and then you make him change at the end. This is what I call the light switch school of character change. Just flip the switch in the last scene and boom, the character has changed. This technique does not work. Let's explore a different way. The self does not work though. So let's explore a different way, okay? The self-expressed as a character. Before we can talk about the true character change and how to create it, we first have to get some idea of what the self is. Since that is what is changing, get idea of what the self is. To do that, we have to ask what is the purpose of the self in storytelling. A character is a fictional self, created to show simultaneously. A character is a fictional self. Okay, created to show simultaneously how each human being is totally unique in an unlimited number of ways, but at the same time always and forever human, with futures we can all share. Okay. This fictional self is then shown in action, in space, and over time, and compared to others to show how a person can live well or badly, and how a person can grow over his lifetime. Not surprisingly, there is no monolithic concept of self in the history of stories. Here are some of the most important ways of looking at the self. A single unit of personality, governed internally with an iron hand. This self is cleanly separated from others but is searching for its destiny. This is what the self was born to do, based on its deepest capabilities. This sense of self is common in myth stories, which typically have a warrior hero. Okay? A single unit comprised of many often conflicting needs and desires, the self has strong urge to connect with others and sometimes even subsume another. This concept of self is found in vast array of stories, especially in the work of modern dramatists like Ibsen, Chekhov, Strindberg, O'Neills, and Williams. A series of roles that the person plays depending on what society demands at the time. Twain may be the most famous prominent of this view. He created his switch comedies to show that a person is largely determined by his position in society. Twain emphasizes the power of roles we play and how we usually turn out to be what society tells us we are. Another one, a loose collection of images, so unstable, porous, malleable, weak, and lacking in integrity that it can shift its shape to something entirely different. There are some major writers who express this loose sense of self. In popular fiction, we see this self in horror stories, especially one about vampires, cat people, and wolf men. Although these various notions of self have some important differences, the purpose of character change and the techniques for accomplishing it are pretty much the same for all of them. So, character change doesn't happen at the end of the story, it happens at the beginning. More precisely, it is made possible at the beginning by how you set it up. So don't think of your main character as a fixed, complete person from whom then you tell a story about. You must think of your hero as a range of change, a range of possibilities, from the very beginning. You have to determine the range of change of the hero at the start of the writing process, or change will be impossible for the hero at the end of the story. You get that? You get that, guys? Huh? Telling you guys. Okay, I cannot overstate the importance of this technique. Okay, if you master the range of change, you will win the game of storytelling. If not, you will rewrite and still never get it right. Rewrite and never get it right. Rewrite and never getting right. Rewrite and sipping tea is right. A simple rule of thumb in fiction is this: the smaller the range, the less interesting the story. Because the bigger the range, the more interesting, but the riskier the story. Because characters don't change much in a limited time they appear in most stories. But what exactly is this range of change? It is the range of possibilities of the character can be, defined by his understanding of himself. Character change is the moment when the hero finally becomes who he will ultimately be. In other words, the main character doesn't suddenly flip to being someone else, except in rare instances. The main character completes a process which has been occurring throughout the story of becoming who he is in a deeper and more focused way. This process of the hero becoming who he is more deeply. This process of the hero becoming who he is more deeply can seem hopelessly ethereal, which is why it is often misunderstood. So let me be very detailed here. Okay, this has to be very, very detailed. So you can show a character going through many changes in a story, but not all of them represent character change. For example, you may show a character who starts poor but ends up rich, or he may begin as a peasant and end up as a king, or he have a drinking problem and learn how to stay sober. These are all changes. They are not character changes. True character change involves a challenging and changing of basic belief, leading to a new moral action by the hero. These are good stuff. I'm not saying like as if, I mean like if these are really profound stuff. Like I'm actually learning, but it's actually quite bizarre, but quite bizarre in a good way, in a positive way, because all these things that they are saying is actually quite interesting. Okay, a character's self-knowledge is made up of his beliefs about the world and about himself. There are his beliefs about what makes a good life and about what he will do to get what he wants. In a good story, as the hero goes after a goal, he is forced to challenge his most deep-seated beliefs. In the cauldron of crisis, he sees what he really believes, decides what he will act on, and takes moral action to prove it. Just as writers have expressed different sense of self, so have they used different strategies to express character change. I mentioned that a story walks on two legs, acting and learning. Generally, in the long history of storytelling, there has been a move from almost total emphasis on acting in a myth form, where the audience learns simply by modeling themselves on the hero actions, to a heavy emphasis to learning, in which the audience concern is to figure out what is happening, who these people really are, and what events really transpired before achieving full understanding of how to live a good life. We see these learning stories from authors like la 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 in films, la 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 la, like Memento or Your Usual Suspects. Character changes in learning stories is not simply a matter of watching a character gain new nugget of understanding of himself at the end of the story. The audience must actually participate in the character change and become various characters throughout the storytelling process. Not only by experiencing the character difference point of view, but also by having to figure out whose point of view the audience is seeing. Clearly, the possibilities of character change are limitless. Your hero's development depends on what he believes he starts with. Your hero development depends on what beliefs he starts with, how he challenges them, and how they have changed by the end of the story. This is one of the ways that you make the story uniquely yours. But certain kind of character change are more common than others. Let's look at some of them, not because you have to use one of them in your story, but because understanding them will help you master this all-important technique in your own writing. Child to adult. Oh, yawning already, tired already. Half an hour already. Okay. Child to adult, also known as coming of age story. Okay, this change has nothing to do with a child physically becoming an adult. Of course, you may think this is obvious, but many writers make the mistake in a coming of age story by defining character development as someone having his first sexual experience. Although this experience may be tragic or amusing, it has nothing to do with character change. A true coming of age story shows a young person challenging and changing basic beliefs and then taking a new moral action. You can see this particular change in stories like The Sixth Sense, Big, Good Will Hunting, Forrest Gump. Adult to leader. In this change, a character goes from being concerned only with finding the right path for himself to realizing that he must help others find the right path as well. You see this in The Matrix, Saving Private Ryan, Braveheart, same Forrest Gump, Snyder's List, The Lion King. Cynic to participant. This development is really a specialized form of going from adult to leader. Here the character begins as someone who sees value only in himself. He has pulled away from the larger society and is interested in pleasure, personal freedom and money. But by the end of the story, the hero has learned the value of making the larger world right and has rejoined society as a leader. Stories like Han Solo in Star Wars. Leader to tyrant. Not all character change is positive. In leader to tyrant stories, the character moves from helping a few others find the right path to forcing others to follow in his path. A lot of actors are afraid to play this change because they think it may make them look bad. But it usually makes for great drama. You can see it in A Few Good Men, The Godfather. Leader to visionary. Okay, in this change, a character goes from helping a few others find the right path to seeing how an entire society should change and live in the future. We see this in the great religious stories and in some creation myths. Writers often use the Moses story structure when depicting this change. For example, Close Encounters of the Third Kind has an everyman Roy who has a vision of the mountain. He climbs to the top of the mountain and there he sees the future of the universe in the form of a giant spaceship. Beware of a big problem you must overcome if you want to show a character becoming a visionary. You must come up with the vision. Most writers who try to tell this story get to the end and are shocked to realize that they don't have a vision of how the entire society should act differently in the future. So at the moment of final revelation, they have the character see a white light or a beautiful image of nature. This doesn't work. The character's vision must be detailed moral vision. Moses' 10 commandments are 10 moral laws. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is a series of moral laws. Make sure yours are too and don't write this type of story. As in make sure yours are too so that you don't write this type of story. So, last one, metamorphosis in horror, fantasy, fairy tale, and certain intense psychological dramas, the character may undergo metamorphosis or extreme character change. Here, the character actually becomes another person, animal or thing. This is radical and costly change and implies a self that is initially weak, fractured and devastated. At its best, this development shows an act of an extreme empathy. At its worst, it marks the complete destruction of the old self and entrapment in the new. In horror stories like The Fly, the human change into an animal marks his complete surrender to sexual passion and predatory behavior. We watch this devolutionary process as man returns to his animal roots. Oh yes, it's part 3. Part 3. On rare occasions in stories, a character may change from beast to human. Arguably, King Kong is such a character when he seems to fall in love with Fei Ray's character and dies to be with her. It was beauty killed the beast, says the far more predatory producer. The Feral Kid in Road Warrior is a grunting animal child who not only learns to be a human by watching Mad Max, but ends as a leader of his tribe. In Gilgamesh, the animal man Enkidu becomes human when he is tricked into sleeping with a woman. In Kafka's Metamorphosis is what might be called a switch tragedy. Traveling salesman Gregor wakes up one morning to find he has turned into a bug. This is a rare example of a character change happening at the beginning of the story, with the rest of the tale given over to the experience of being a bug. Character change of this extreme sort necessarily involves the use of a symbol. Okay, so we're going to talk about this in chapter 7 in terms of symbol web to see the techniques for attaching a symbol to a character. So, creating character change in your story. Are we there yet? Oh my god, there's so much more to go for characters. Creating character change in your story. Having looked at how character change works in storytelling, your question now becomes, how do you build this change for your story? In chapter 2 on premise, we explore this technique of going to the opposite of the basic action in the story to get a sense of a possible character change of your hero. You'll recall that Godfather works like this, right? The premise is the youngest son of a mafia family takes revenge on the man who shot his father and becomes the new Godfather. So the weaknesses at the beginning, he is unconcerned, afraid, and mainstream, legitimate, and separate from the family. The basic action is that he wants to take revenge, and a changed person is that he becomes a tyrannical and absolute ruler of the family. Then in chapter 3, we talk about how you set up the 7 main structural steps of your story, so that the character drives the plot and experience deep change at the same time. Here, I want to focus in much greater detail on the techniques for creating the character change that will serve as a foundation for your story. When I asked earlier how you build this change, I used the word build purposely because this is where you literally set the frame of your story. So, always begin at the end of the change with the self-revelation, then go back and determine the starting point of the change, which the hero's need and desire, then figure out the steps of development in between. Wow. Always begin at the end of the change with the self-revelation, then go back and determining the starting of the point of change, which is the hero's need and desire, then figure out the steps of development in between. This is so good though. This is one of the most valuable techniques in all of fiction writing. Use it and you will see your storytelling ability improves dramatically. So when I talk about the whole story about the badminton one, so the badminton story is that, yeah, the character change is that he became like he doesn't want to teach anymore. So you see he wants to go back to his start when he started the time, which is he is able to teach. So you get to see that character change, the development. Alright. The reason you start at the end point is that every story is a journey of learning that your hero takes, which may or may not be accompanied by a physical journey. As with any journey, before you can take your first step, you have to know the end point of where you're going, otherwise you walk in circles and wander aimlessly. By starting with the self-revelation, the end of the character change, you know that every step your character takes will lead to the end. There will be no padding, nothing extraneous. This is the only way to make the story organic. internally logical lah. So that to guarantee that every step of the journey is necessarily connected to every other step, and that the journey builds to a crescendo. Some writers are afraid of this technique because they think that it constricts them or forces them to write schematically. In fact, this technique gives you greater freedom because you always have a safety net. No matter where you are in the story, you know your eventual destination, so you can take chances and try out story events that may appear on the surface to be off the path but are actually taking you in a more creative way to where you need to go. Remember, the self-revelation is made possible at the beginning of the story. This means that a good self-revelation has two parts, the revelation itself and the setup. The moment of revelation should have these qualities, okay? It should be sudden so that it has maximum dramatic force for the hero and the audience. It should create a burst of emotions for the audience as they share the realization with the hero. It should be new information for the hero. He must see for the first time that he has been living a lie about himself and that he has hurt others. It should trigger the hero to take new moral action immediately, proving that the revelation is real and has profoundly changed him. The setup to the revelation should have these qualities. The hero must be a thinking person, someone who is capable of seeing the truth and knowing the right actions. The hero must be hiding something from himself. This lie or delusion must be hurting the hero in a very real way. You may notice what appears to be contradiction, a thinking person who is lying to himself, but even though this may be a contradiction, it is real. We all suffer from it. One of the powers of storytelling is showing us how a human being who is capable of brilliant and creative thought is also capable of intricate and enslaving delusion. Can you guys get it? Do you guys get it? Because this is very like, I don't know, if I were to just take this whole passage that I read and just put it on a piece of paper, I would. It's quite good. Sip a tea, think about it first. So your hero your character need to know that he is in a lie, you know, like it's a revelation for him that he's doing something wrong already. And the setup, you have to set up like how that point in time where he realized like, okay, I need to get back to where I am. That's the character change, that's the range of change, and whatever events that happens in between, it doesn't matter as long as you know where your destination is gonna go. Now I don't know. I'm thinking back of Lord of the Rings, right? It made me love Lord of the Rings even more now. You set up the problem. Like, you know how at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, where Elrond and King, what's his name? I don't know what's his name. Isildur, King Isildur. They were at the moment where he was able to throw the ring, but he couldn't. But then at the end of the story, where Frodo and Smeagol was doing, they managed to do it. It's like they want to go back to that place where, you know, the ring is destroyed, that kind of thing. And you see that range of change in the story of how many things happen. And it's very, very interesting lah. That no wonder like, you know, that's what good storytelling is lah. And this really shows like why you know, this shows why lah, that good films actually made this kind of thing is because they follow this kind of structure and these kind of things, and it makes it a much better film because the audience identify with that. Okay, let's talk about character technique, double reversal. The standard way of expressing character change is to give the hero a need and a self-revelation. He challenges and changes his basic belief and then takes a new moral action. Because the audience identify with the hero, they learn what he learns. But a problem arises. How do you show your own moral vision of right and wrong action as distinct from the hero's? These visions are not necessarily the same. Also, you may wish to express the character change with more complexity and emotional impact than the standard methods allow. An advanced technique for showing character change in a story is a unique kind of self-revelation, what I call a double reversal. In this technique, you give the opponent as well as the hero a self-revelation. Each learns from each other, and the audience receives two insights about how to act and live in a world instead of one. There are a couple of advantages to using the double reversal over the standard single self-revelation. First, by using a comparative method, you can show that the audience that the right way of acting and being that is both subtler and clearer than a single revelation. Think of it as the difference between stereo or mono sound. Second, the audience is not so locked on to the hero. They can be more easily step back and see the bigger picture, the larger ramifications of the story. To create a double reversal, take these steps. Give both the hero and the main opponent a weakness and a need. The weaknesses and need of the hero and the opponent do not have to be the same or even similar. Make the opponent human. That means that he must be capable of learning and changing also. During or just after the battle, give the opponent as well as the hero a self-revelation. Connect the two self-revelation. Why am I yawning? Connect the two self-revelation. The hero should learn something from the opponent, and the opponent should learn something from the hero. Your moral vision is the best of what both characters learn. The double reversal is a powerful technique, but it is not common. That's because most writers don't create opponents who are capable of a self-revelation. If your opponent is evil, innately and completely bad, he will not discover how wrong he has been at the end of the story. For example, an opponent who reaches into people's chests and rips their heart out for dinner is not gonna realize he needs to change. Not surprisingly, you see a greater use of the double reversal in love stories, which are designed so that the hero and the lover, the main opponent, learn from each other. You can see examples of double reversal in films like Pride and Prejudice, Pretty Woman, Scent of a Woman, Casablanca. Once you have figured out your hero's self-revelation, you go back to the need. One of the benefits of creating the self-revelation first is that it automatically tells you your hero's need. If the self-revelation is what the hero learns, the need is what the hero doesn't yet know but must learn to have a better life. Your hero needs to see through a great delusion he is living under to overcome the great weakness that is crippling his life. Okay, good stuff. Creating your hero. Step 3. Desire. The third step in creating a strong hero is to create the desire line. Chapter 3 describes this step as the spine of the story. Keep in mind 3 rules for a strong desire line. You want only one desire line that builds steadily in importance and intensity. If you have more than one desire line, the story will fall apart. Wait. What am I reading now? Creating your hero, desire. The third step in creating a strong hero is to create a desire line. So, Chapter 3, it describes this step as the spine of the story. So keep in mind 3 rules, okay? If you want to create a desire for your hero, you have to keep in mind these 3 rules. The first rule, you want only one desire line that builds steadily in importance and intensity. If you want more than one, the story will fall apart. It will literally go in 2 or 3 different directions at once, leaving it with no narrative drive and leaving the audience confused. In a good story, the hero has a single overriding goal that he pursues with greater and greater intensity. The story moves faster and faster, and the narrative drive becomes overwhelming. The desire should be specific, and the more specific, the better. To make sure your desire line is specific enough, ask yourself if there is a specific moment in the story where the audience know whether your hero has accomplished his goal or not. In Top Gun, I know when the hero succeeds or fails in winning the Top Gun award because the head of the flight school hands it to someone else. Okay, sometimes a writer will say something like, oh, my hero desire is to become independent, applying the rule of the specific moment. When does someone become independent in life? When he leaves home for the first time, when he gets married, when he gets divorced. There is no specific moment when someone becomes independent. Dependence or independence has more to do with the need and makes a very poor desire. It's not desire but a need. So you gotta know what's the story's desire. The desire should be accomplished, if at all, near at the end of the story. If the hero reaches the goal in the middle of the story, you must either end the story right there or create a new desire line. In which case you have struck two stories together. By extending the hero desire line almost to the end, you make your story a single unit and ensure that it has a tremendous narrative drive. So, Lord of the Rings, I want to destroy the ring. By the end of the third, you destroyed the ring. Simple as that. The desire line in each of the following film meets all three criteria. Saving Private Ryan, to find Private Ryan and bring him back alive. Chinatown, to solve the mystery of who killed Hollis. The Godfather, to take revenge of the man who shot Vito Corleone. Vito Corleone. Step 4. Creating your hero, the opponent. I'm not exaggerating when I say the trick to defining your hero and figuring out your story is to figure out your opponent. Of all the connection in the correct character web, the most important is the relationship between the hero and the main component. This relationship determines how the entire drama builds. That's why, as a writer, you should love this character because he will help you in countless ways. Structurally, the opponent always holds the key because your hero learns through his opponent. It is only because the opponent is attacking the hero's greatest weakness that the hero is forced to deal with it and grow. So the main character is only as good as the person he fights. Nice. To see how important this principle is, think of your hero and opponent as tennis player. Ooh. If the hero is the best player in the world, but the opponent is the weekend hacker, the hero will hit a few shots, the opponent will stumble around, and the audience will be bored. But if the opponent is the second best player in the world, and the hero will be forced to hit his best shots, like Federer and Nadal, the opponent will hit back some spectacular shots of his own. They'll run at each other all over the court, and the audience will go wild. That's exactly how good storytelling works. The hero and the opponent drive each other to greatness. The story drama unfolds once you have set the relationship between the hero and the main opponent. If you get this relationship right, the story will always certainly work. If you get this relationship wrong, the story will most definitely fail. So let's look at the elements that you need to create a great opponent. Make the opponent necessary. The single most important element of a great opponent is that he be necessary to the hero. This has a very specific structural meaning. The main opponent is the one person in the world best able to attack the great weakness of the hero, and he should attack it relentlessly. The necessary opponent either forces the hero to overcome his weakness or destroy him. But put another way, the necessary opponent makes it possible for the hero to grow. Why am I becoming Indian? Okay. Second, make him human. A human opponent is not just a person as opposed to an animal, an object, or a phenomenon. A human opponent is complex, and as valuable as the hero. Structurally, this means that the human opponent is always some form of a double of a hero. Certain writers have used this concept of a doppelganger, when determining the specific characteristic of the opponent, who is extremely similar to the hero, but is really a much larger technique. One of the major principles to use for creating any hero and opponent pair. The concept of a double provides a number of ways that the hero and the opponent should compare with, contrast with, and help define each other. The opponent double has certain weaknesses that are causing him to act wrongly towards others or act in ways that prevent the opponent from having a better life. Like the hero, the opponent double has a need based on those weaknesses. The opponent double must want something, preferably the same goal as the hero. The opponent double should be of a great power, status, or ability to put ultimate pressure on the hero, set up a final battle, and drive the hero to a larger success or failure. Give him value that oppose the value of the hero. The actions of the hero and the opponent are based on a set of beliefs or values. These values represents each character's view of what makes life good. In the best stories, the value of the opponent come into conflict with the values of the hero. Though through that conflict, the audience sees which way of the life is superior. Much of the power of the story rests on the quality of this opposition. Give the opponent a strong but flawed moral argument. An evil opponent is someone who is inherently bad, but therefore mechanical and uninteresting. In most real conflict, there is no clear sense of good and evil, right and wrong. In a well-drawn story, both hero and opponent believe that they have chosen the right path. Both have reason for believing it so they are both misguided, though in different ways. The opponent attempts to justify his action morally, just as the hero does. A good writer details the moral argument of the opponent, making sure it is powerful and compelling, but ultimately wrong. I'll discuss how in the next chapter, moral argument. Give him certain similarities to the hero. The contrast between the hero and opponent is powerful only when both characters have strong similarities. Each then presents a slightly different approach to the same dilemma, and it's in the similarities that crucial and instructive differences becomes most clear. By giving the hero and the opponent certain similarities, you also keep the hero from being perfectly good and the opponent from being completely evil. Never think of the hero and opponent as extreme opposites. Rather, there are two possibilities within the range of possibilities. The argument between hero and opponent is not between good or evil, but between two characters who have weaknesses and needs. So like the badminton story, I feel like the opponent is that when someone presents you a problem, so the coach, one he didn't want to coach and one he coached. One person grew differently, one person grew differently. So they have their own weaknesses and they have their own needs. But who the audience identify more, usually would be the hero lah, but they can understand where the opponent is coming from. So something like that lah. Keep him in the same place as the hero. This runs counter to common sense. Oh, who knows both of them are brothers? That would be sick. That would be a great story, right? This runs counter to the common sense. When two people don't like each other, they tend to go in the opposite directions. But if this happens in your story, you will have great difficulty building conflict. The trick is to find a natural reason for the hero and opponent to stay in the same place during the course of the story. So say for example, there are two friends, best friends, or roommates or something like that. And you create this need. Alright? A textbook example of how the opponent works on a hero is the Hannibal Lecter character in The Silence of the Lamb. Ironically, in this film, Lecter is not a true opponent. He is the fake opponent ally, a character who appears to be Clarice's opponent but is really her greatest friend. I like to think of Lecter as Yoda from hell. The training he gives Clarice, though brutal, is far more valuable than anything she learns in the FBI Academy. But in their first meeting, Lecter shows us in miniature how an opponent relentlessly attacks the hero's weaknesses until she fixes them or falls. Clarice visits Lecter in his cell to get some insights about the serial killer Buffalo Bill. After a promising start, she overplays her hand and insults Lecter's intelligence. He goes on the attack. Okay, let me read. Lecter: "Oh, Agent Starling, you think you can dissect me with this blunt little tool?" Clarice: "No, I thought that your knowledge." Lecter: "You're so ambitious, aren't you? You know what you look like to me with your good bag and your cheap shoes. You look like a rube. A well-scrubbed, hustling rube with a little taste. Good nutrition gives you some length of bone, but you're not more than one generation from poor white trash." "Are you, Agent Starling? And that accent you tried so desperately to shed, pure West Virginia. Who's your favorite? Who's your father, dear? Is he a coal miner? Does he stink of the lamb? Or how quickly the boys found you? All those tedious, sticky fumblings in the backseat of car while you could only dream of getting out, getting anywhere, getting all the way to the FBI." Look at some examples of opponents in storytelling, noting that each is not so much a separate individual as the one best opponent for that hero. Batman and Joker, I guess. Gives some examples lah. But I'll take Star Wars as an example. Luke Skywalker is an impetuous, naive young man with a desire to do good and a tremendous but untrained ability in the use of the Force. Darth Vader is a grand master of the Force. He can outthink and outfight Luke, and he uses his knowledge of his son and the Force to try to lure Luke to the dark side. Darth Vader: "Use the Force, Luke. Come to the dark side. Join me as we conquer the galaxy as father and son." "I will never join you." No. Building conflict. Wait, before we build conflict, let's drink tea first. I finished my tea, guys. I don't know if I should continue reading until the end. I feel like, I don't know, reading is not really my thing, you know. And maybe this is the last part of the whole anatomy of story. I mean, if you guys liked me to read some more, then I would, but I don't know. I don't know if I should continue or not. I mean, these are all good stuff. But at the end of the day, this one, you read is just for reading only, but you have to really take it in and actually like take in consideration when you write a script, which I'm not really doing at the moment. And just reading like that, it doesn't really do good because there are so many good content, but I'm just reading it out and not really taking it in. And I feel like maybe it's because I am not writing a script at the moment, or I'm not really practicing it. So I don't know. And reading it sometimes, maybe as for you who are listening to this. Maybe you don't really understand what I'm reading also. And it may not be as interesting. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just finish up with moral argument, maybe, and then we'll call it. Maybe we'll try something different, instead of just reading. Maybe we'll try something different. I'm a bit tired today. Building conflict. Once you set up a hero and an opponent competing for the same goal, you must build the conflict steadily until the final battle. Your purpose is to put constant pressure on your hero, because this is what will force him to change. The way you build conflict and put pressure on your hero depends primarily on how you distribute the attacks on the hero. In average or simple stories, the hero comes in conflict with only one opponent. This standard opposition has the virtue of clarity, but it doesn't let you develop a deep or powerful sequence of conflict, and it doesn't allow the audience to see a hero acting with a larger society. So, a simplistic opposition between two characters kills any chance of depth, complexity, or the reality of human life in your story. For that, you need a web of opposition. Four-corner opposition. Wow, so many opposition. Better stories go beyond a simple opposition between your hero and the main opponent, and use a technique I call a four-corner opposition. In this technique, you create a hero and the main opponent plus at least two secondary opponents. You can have even more if the added opponents serve as an important story function. Think of each character, hero, and three opponents as taking a corner of the box, meaning that each is as different from the others as possible. So you have Luke versus Darth Vader, and versus the Chancellor, and also Chancellor Palpatine, and the third one. Who is the other one? Jango Fett. So a standard two character opposition is like this, but four corner one is this one. So you have the hero, opponent 1, opponent 2, and opponent 3. So this is how they connect with each other lah. Okay, there are 5 rules to keep in mind to make the best use of the key features of four corner opposition. Each opponent should use a different way of attacking the hero's great weakness. Attacking the hero's weakness is the central purpose of the opponent. So, the first way of distinguishing opponents from one another is to give each a unique way of attacking. Notice that this technique guarantees that all conflict is organically connected to the hero's greatest flaw. Four-corner opposition has the added benefit of representing a complete society in miniature, which each character personifying one of the basic pillars of that society. In the following examples, the hero is in the upper left corner, and in the diagram, while his main opponent is opposite him, with the two secondary characters underneath. In parentheses is the archetype each embodies, if one exists. As you study the example, notice that four-corner opposition is fundamental to any good story, regardless of the medium, genre, or time when it was written. Try to place each character in conflict, that not only with the hero but also with each other character. Notice an immediate advantage four-corner opposition has over standard opposition. In four-corner opposition, the amount of conflict you can create and build in a story jumps exponentially. Not only do you place your hero in conflict with 3 characters instead of 1, but you can also put the opponents in conflict with each other, as shown by the arrows in the four-corner opposition diagram. The result is intense conflict and a dense plot. That's second. Third, put the values of all 4 characters in conflict. Great storytelling isn't just conflict between characters, it's conflict between characters and their values. When your hero experiences character change, he challenges and changes basic beliefs, leading to new moral action. A good opponent has a set of beliefs has come under assault as well. The beliefs of the hero has no meaning. A good opponent has a set of beliefs that come under assault as well. The beliefs of the hero have no meaning and do not get expressed in the story unless they come into conflict with the beliefs of at least one other character, preferably the opponent. In the standard way of placing values in conflict, 2 characters, hero and single opponent, fight for the same goal. As they fight, their values and their way of life come into conflict too. 4-corner opposition of values allows you to create a story of potential epic scope and yet keep its essential organic unity. For example, each character may express a unique system of values, a way of life that can come into conflict with 3 other major ways of life. Notice that the 4-corner method of placing values in conflict provides tremendous texture and depth of a theme to a story. A story with 4-corner opposition values might look like this. Same thing lah. It's just that if it comes into contact with different values, it'll be good lah. So be as detailed as possible when listing the values of each character. Don't just come up with a single value for each character. Think of a cluster of values that each can believe in. The values in each cluster are unique but also related to one another. Look for the positive and negative versions of the same value. Believing in something can be a strength, but it also can be a source of weakness. By identifying the negative as well as the positive side of the same value, you can see how each character is most likely to make a mistake when fighting for what he believes. Examples of positive and negative versions of the same value are determined and aggressive, honest and insensitive, and patriotic and domineering. So fourth one. Push the characters to the corners. When creating the 4-corner opposition, pencil in each character hero and 3 opponents into one of 4 corners in a box. Then push each character to the corners. In other words, make each character as different as possible from the other 3. Extend the 4-corner pattern to every level of the story. Once you determine the basic 4-corner opposition, consider extending the pattern to other levels of the story. For example, you might set up a unique 4-corner pattern of opposition within a society, an institution, a family, or even a single character. Especially in more epic stories, you will see a 4-corner opposition on several levels. Here are 3 stories that use 4-corner opposition at 2 different levels of the story. I'll choose one now, okay? Godfather. Within the family, there's the Godfather, there's Fredo, there's Sony, there's Michael. Within the world, there's Corleone family, the Solozzo, the Carlozzo, the Carlo, and the Bazzini. So within the family and within the world, there is different levels that you can create, like different opponents. So it's quite interesting. Okay. Oh, we're done already with character. It's just now character writing exercise only. Okay, writing exercise. So just to recap, like what we learned for character. Okay, creating your characters, writing exercise. Character verb by story function and archetype. So create your character verb. Start by listing all your characters and describe what function they may play in a story. For example, hero main opponent, ally, fake ally, opponent, subplot character. Write down next to each other the archetype, if any. Central moral problem. List the central moral problem of the story. Comparing the characters. List and compare the following structure elements of all your characters. Weaknesses, the need, the desire, the value, power, status, and ability. How each faces the central moral problem. Begin the comparison between your hero and the main opponent. So the variation of the moral problem. Make sure each character takes a different approach to the hero's central moral problem. Requirements of the hero. Now concentrate on fleshing out your hero by making sure that you have incorporated the 4 requirements of any great hero. 1. Make sure your lead character is constantly fascinating. 2nd, make the audience identify with the character but not too much. 3rd, make the audience empathize with your character, not sympathize. Give your hero a moral as well as a psychological need. Hero character change. Determining your hero character change, write down the self-revelation first and then go back to the need. Make sure the self-revelation actually solves the need. In other words, whatever lie or crutches the hero is living with in the beginning must be faced at the self-revelation and overcome. Change belief. Write down the beliefs your hero challenges and changes over the course of your story. Hero's desire. Clarify your hero's desire line. Is it single, specific goal that extends throughout the story? When does the audience know whether the hero has accomplished the goal or not? Opponents. Detail your opponents. First, describe how your main opponents and each of your lesser opponents attack the great weakness of your hero in different way. Opponent's value. List a few values of each opponent. How is each opponent a kind of a double for the hero? Give each some of the level of power, status, ability, and describe what similarities each shares with the hero. State in one line the moral problem of each character and how each character justifies the action he takes to reach his goal. Minor character variation on the hero's weakness and moral problem. In what way are any of the minor characters variation on the hero's unique weaknesses and moral problem? 4-corner opposition. Map out the 4-corner opposition for your story. Put your hero and the main opponent on top of line with at least 2 secondary opponents underneath. Label each character with his or her archetype, but only if it's appropriate. Many characters are not archetype, so don't force it. Push the 4 major characters to the corners, that is, make sure each is as different from the other 3 as possible. The best way is to ensure that it's to focus on how the values each differs. Okay. They are just using a an example to say what's the for the writing exercise lah. But this one I think I don't really want to read because it doesn't really make sense when I read it here. Should we go more for the moral argument? Okay. Chapter 5. How is everyone doing? Everyone getting sleepy already? Everyone like zoned out already? It's like what is Jen reading? I'm not really identifying with Jen now. Is he just reading? What is he reading? What is he doing? What is he saying? Is he saying something that I can actually learn? I don't know if this is a good way to do a live stream, because I don't think people would spend so much time just listening to me read when they don't have the book. Firstly, secondly, is they don't know what I'm trying to say also. And third is maybe something that just not many people want to do, you know. So what, maybe this is the last stream for this book. Yeah, I think I'm getting tired. Yeah, not just that, I think it's just the fact that this book, yes, it's valuable, but I don't think when I put it up on live stream, I don't think it's giving any value, you know. So let's just see lah. Because next week also I'm doing something different already. So see if I want to come back again. See if I want to come back to read again. Because next week is I'm doing the Ramadan Hari Raya just short films review, like just watching all the ads and like how I did for Chinese New Year. So that will be interesting. So the following week, see lah, if I want to read some more or not. If not, then I'll just do something else. I'll try to do something else. A lot of interesting things about this moral argument thing. Okay, are we ready for chapter 5? Moral argument. Finish this chapter and then I'll stop there for this stream. Today that will be all. Next is the story world. How you build your story, I think. Story world. Wow, story world is a very big chapter. And then after that, symbol web. This is the one where they add a symbol to a thing to justify your characters and whatnot. And plot, also another interesting. It should be an interesting chapter as well. Plot, how to write a good plot. And then scene weave. What is scene weave? Scene weave, I think, is more like the scenes, right? How do they show a certain thing? And then lastly, scene construction and symphonic dialogue. Wow. How to write dialogue. And the never ending story. How a great story lives forever. So that's all right. Okay. And now we are in chapter 5. Moral argument. This will be interesting. Okay, shall we begin? Everyone drank your tea already? Drink your water already? Or maybe I should stand up for a while, you know? Just to stand up for a while, it's been an hour, and why not just, stand up a little bit? Exercise a little bit. I go and fill water first. Hello. MCO maybe imposed in Penang Hui. Now MCO in KL, Selangor for 2 weeks. Cannot play badminton. Can only exercise around my area. Write down important points in your notebook and share it out. Maybe it will be more interesting. Yeah. Maybe. So that means let me read the book and then I'll take one live stream to like tell out how do you actually write a story. Give you a detailed picture of how to write a story. Explain a little bit, like giving classes like that. Like giving writing classes. Come to Jen for writing classes. Shall we? Moral argument, chapter 5. Once I'm done with this, then good night. Say hello to my little friend, which is the bed. Moral argument. According to the Hollywood lore, it was Samuel Goodwin who said, if you want to send a message, try Western Union. He was right about not sending a message in an obvious preachy way, but stories with a powerful theme, expressed properly, are not only one more highly regarded, but more popular as well. A great story is not simply a sequence of events or surprises designed to entertain an audience. It is a sequence of action with moral implications and effects, designed to express a larger theme. Theme may be the most misunderstood of all major aspects of storytelling. Why is it misunderstood? Well, most people think of the theme as a subject matter in categories such as the moral, psychological, and social citing examples such as death, good versus evil, redemption, class, corruption, responsibility, and love. I don't refer to theme as a subject matter. Theme is the author's view of how to act in the world. It is your moral vision. Whenever you present a character using means to reach an end, you are presenting a moral predicament. Good that you're learning me. Okay, so a theme is not a subject matter. Theme is the author's view of how to act in the world. It is your moral vision. Whenever you present a character using... Actually, why not I read the Bible? Reading the Bible and actually reflect on what God's telling you. Anyway, maybe. Whenever you present a character using a means to reach an end, you are presenting a moral predicament, exploring the questions of the right action, and making a moral argument about how best to live. Your moral vision is totally original to you, and expressing it to an audience is one of the main purposes of telling a story. So let's return to the body metaphor for story. A good story is a living system in which the parts work together to make an integrated whole. These parts are themselves systems, each like character, plot, and theme, hanging together as a unit, but also connecting in myriad ways to each of the other subsystems of the story body. We have compared character to the heart and the circulatory system of the story. Structure is the skeleton. Continuing the metaphor, we might say the theme is the brain of the story body, because it expresses the higher design. As the brain, it should lead the writing process, without becoming so dominant that it turns the story, a work of artistry, into a philosophical thesis. How writers weave their moral vision into the story covers a wide range of possibilities, depending on the author and the story form. At one extreme are highly thematic forms like drama, allegory, irony, and serious literature, and religious story. They place heavy emphasis on creating a complex moral vision with dialogue that highlights the complexity and contradiction in the character's moral situation. At the other extreme are such popular stories form as an adventure, myth, fantasy, and action stories. Here, the moral vision is usually slight and with almost total emphasis on surprise, suspense, imagination, and the psychological and emotional stress, rather than the moral difficulties of the character. Regardless of story form, average writers express their moral visions almost solely through the dialogue, so that the moral overwhelms the story. Stories like Gandhi get criticized for being on the nose and preachy. At their worst, overtly moralizing stories are ponderous, causing their audience to shrink back from the author's oppressive lecturing, clumsy narrative, and the lack of technique. You never want to create characters that sound like a mouthpiece for your ideas. Yeah. Good writers express their moral vision slowly and subtly, primarily through the story structure and the way the hero deals with a particular situation. Your moral vision is communicated by how your hero pursues his goal while competing with one or more opponents, and by what your hero learns or fails to learn over the course of his struggle. In effect, you, as the author, are making a moral argument through what your characters do in the plot. How does this sort of moral argument, the argument of action, work in storytelling? Finding the theme line in the designing principle. The first step in making an argument of action is to condense your theme into a single line. The theme line is your view about right and wrong actions and what those actions do to a person's life. A theme line is not a highly nuanced expression of your moral vision, and written as only one line. It can seem heavy-handed, but is still valuable because it forces you to focus on all the moral elements of the story into a single moral idea. The complex argument of action that you will eventually weave through the story begins, as always, with the seed, which is the designing principle. Just as the designing principle is the key to your premise line, so is it the key to your theme line. The designing principle is what makes all the actions of the story organic. The trick to using the designing principle to figure out your theme line is to focus on the action in a story strictly for their moral effects. In other words, how do the character actions hurt other people, and how, if at all, do the character make things right? The same technique of designing principle that help you deepen your premise will open up your theme as well. Here are just a few. Traveling. The traveling metaphor or journey is a perfect foundation for a moral line because you can embed an entire moral sequence into the line. The journey from Manhattan Island to Skull Island in King Kong suggests the move from a moral civilization to the most immoral state of nature. But the return to Manhattan shows the real theme line that both islands are governed by the most cutthroat competition, which the island of human being the most brutal. Single grand symbol. A single grand symbol and can also suggest a theme line or central moral element. A classic example of a single moral symbol is presented in the Scarlet Letter. The letter A that Hester Prynne must wear stands of course for an immoral act of adultery from which the story begins, but it also stands for a deeper immorality to which the story leads, that of the town people who hide their own sins and to attack true love with their laws of public conformity. Wow. Connecting two grand symbols in one line process. Connecting two symbols gives you the same benefit as the journey. The symbol represents two poles in a moral sequence. When this technique is used, it usually signals a declining morality, but it could be rising. Heart of Darkness uses this technique of two symbols but also act the travelling metaphor to express his theme line. Implied in the two symbol title are the dark heart and the center of the moral darkness, both of which suggest an investigation into what constitutes human depravity. Other designing principles, unit of time, uses a storyteller, a special way the story unfolds, can also help you to clarify your theme line. Let's return to the designing principles of story we discussed in chapter 2 to see the possible theme lines they produce. Okay, let's see. Harry Potter books, okay. Harry Potter books. Designing principle. A magician prince learns to be a man and a king by attending a boarding school for sorcerers over the course of 7 school years. The theme line. When you are blessed with great talent and power, you must become a leader and sacrifice for the good of others. Okay. That's a good example. Splitting the theme into opposition. The theme line is your moral argument focused into one sentence. Now you must express the theme line dramatically. When I talk about the badminton, right? I wonder what's the theme line for that. So the theme line for the badminton story, I guess it's when one learns of lost, one must find the way to come to love again, or something like that, right? When you when a coach yeah, I think that's it. That's the what already? That's the theme line. So, splitting the theme into opposition. The theme line is your moral argument focused into one sentence, okay? Now, you must express the theme line dramatically. That requires that you split into a set of opposition. You then attach this thematic opposition to the hero and his opponents as they fight. There are 3 main techniques you can use to break your theme line into dramatic opposition: giving the hero a moral decision, making each character a variation on the theme, and placing the character's values into conflict. Okay, the hero's moral decision. In the hero's moral development, the endpoints are your hero's moral need at the beginning of the story, and his moral self-revelation, followed by his moral decision at the end. This line is the moral frame of the story, and it tracks the fundamental moral lesson you want to express. So, the endpoints are your hero's moral need at the beginning of the story, and his moral self-revelation, followed by his moral decision at the end. The classic strategy for dramatizing your hero's moral line is to give him a moral flaw at the beginning and then show how his desperation to beat the opponent brings out the worst in him. In short, he has to get worse before he gets better. Slowly but surely, he becomes aware that his central moral problem comes down to the choice between 2 ways of acting. No matter how complex the action of the characters over the course of the story, the final moral decision brings everything down to a choice between the 2, and it is final. So the moral decision is the narrow path of the funnel for your theme. The 2 options are the 2 most important moral actions your hero can take, so that they provide you with the primary thematic opposition for the entire story. This great decision usually comes just after the hero has his moral self-revelation, which shows him which choices to make. On a rare occasion, this choice comes first, and the hero's self-revelation is a recognition that he made either the right one or the wrong choice. So the key point, since the end point of the hero's moral line is his final choice, you want to begin figuring out the moral oppositions using that choice. Okay, character as variations on a theme. Once you have figured out the deepest moral opposition by looking at the hero's final moral choice, you detail this opposition through the character's web by making each of the major character a variation on the theme. Here is a sequence for making this technique work. Look again at the final moral decision and your work on the premise line so you are clear about the central moral problem your hero must deal with the story. Make sure each of the major character deals with the same moral problem but in a different way. Start by comparing the hero and the main opponent, since these characters personify the primary moral opposition you detailed in the story. Then compare the hero to the other opponents. Over the course of the story, each of the major characters should make a moral argument in dialogue, justifying what they do to reach the goal. Good moral argument is done primarily but not solely through structure. So, yeah. The character's value in conflict. Using your character web, now place the values of each of the major characters in conflict as these people compete for the same goal. So just now was character variation as variations on a theme, alright? And then now the character's value in conflict. So identify a set of values for your hero and each of the other major characters. Remember, values are deep-seated beliefs about what makes a good life. Try to give a cluster of values to each character. Make each set of values as different from the others as possible. As your hero and his opponents fight over the goal, make sure their value come into direct conflict. Okay. They just give examples of movies that we haven't really seen, so I don't think I want to talk about that. With characters as variation on a theme and opposition of values, you may want to use the technique of a four-corner opposition explained. And in four-corner opposition, you have a hero and a main opponent and at least two secondary opponents. This gives even the most complex story an organic unity. Each of the four main characters can represent a fundamentally different approach to the same moral problem, and each can express an entire system of values without the story collapsing into a complicated mess. So the key point, your moral argument will always be simplistic if you use a two-part opposition like good versus evil. Only a web of moral opposition, four-corner opposition, can give the audience a sense of moral complexity of real life. So like Little Big Women, I think that's a good one. Good example. Notice that all three of these techniques guarantee that the theme is not imposed on the character, but rather is expressed through the characters itself. This ensures that the story doesn't come across as preachy. Notice also that the story has more depth because the opposition between the characters is not just based on a plot, on people competing for a goal. Entire ways of living are at stake, so the emotional impact on the audience is huge. Okay? So this one is so we slice it into this theme into opposition. Now is theme through structure. Okay. Moral argument doesn't mean your hero and opponent appears in the first scene and engage in a verbal argument about morality. Moral argument in a story is an argument of action you make by showing your hero and opponent taking certain means to reach a goal. This is how you weave theme through a story structure instead of preaching to the audience in a dialogue. In fact, one of the great principles of storytelling is that structure doesn't just carry content, it is content. It is far more powerful content than what your characters say. Nowhere is this principle more accurately expressed than in theme. In a good story, the story structure converges near the end at the same time that the theme expands in the mind of an audience. How does a converging story structure cause the theme to expand? A diagram of good structure and theme might look like this. Okay. At the beginning of the story, you set the hero and opponent in opposition, but the conflict is not intense, and the audience doesn't yet know how the values of each come into conflict, so they have almost no sense of theme for the story. Throughout the middle of the story, the hero and the opponent come into increasing conflict, hence the converging structure. Through this conflict, a difference in value begins to emerge, so the theme starts to expand. Still, for most of the good story, the theme is largely hidden. is quietly growing in the minds of the audience, and it will hit with full force at the end. The convergent point of story structure is the battle, and right after that, the self-revelation and the moral decision. In the battle, the audience sees not just which force, but also which set of values is superior. The audience's understanding of the theme expands rapidly. At the self-revelation, especially if it's a moral self-revelation, the theme expands again. At the moral decision, it expands yet again. And because the theme has been expressed primarily through structure, it seems to emerge from the very soul of the audience, not to have imposed on them like a tiresome sermon. Let's look at how moral argument is expressed through structure over the course of an entire story in detail from beginning to end. So we'll start with the basic strategy of expressing moral argument, then look at some variation. So, moral argument, the basic strategy, okay? Values. The hero starts with a set of beliefs and values. Moral weakness. He is hurting others in some way at the beginning of the story. He's not evil, but rather is acting from weakness and is unaware of the proper way to act towards each other. Moral need. Based on his moral weakness, the hero must learn how to act properly towards others in order to grow and live a better life. First, immoral action. The hero almost immediately acts in some way that hurts others. This is evidence to the audience of the hero's basic moral flaw. The desire. The hero comes up with a goal towards which all else is sacrificed. This goal leads him into direct conflict with an opponent who has a differing set of values but the same goal. Drive. The hero and the opponent takes a series of action to reach the goal. Immoral action. During the early and middle parts of the story, the hero is usually losing to the opponent. He becomes desperate. As a result, he starts taking immoral actions to win. Criticism. Other characters criticize the hero for the means he is taking. Justification. The hero tries to justify his action. He may see the deeper truth and right of the situation by the end of the story, but not now. Attack by ally. The hero's closest friend makes a strong case that the hero's methods are wrong. Obsessive drive. Galvanized by the new revelations about how to win, the hero becomes obsessed with reaching the goal and will do almost anything to succeed. Immoral actions. The hero's immoral actions intensifies. Criticism. Attacks by other characters grows as well. The hero justification. The hero vehemently defends his actions. As the story proceeds, the differing values and ways of living in the world represented by the hero and the opponent becomes clear through actions and dialogue. There are 4 places at the end of the story where the theme explodes in the mind of the audience: the battle, the self-revelation, moral decision, and the structure step, which we haven't discussed yet, the thematic revelation. So the battle, the final conflict that decides the goal. Regardless of who wins, the audience learns which values and ideas are superior. Final action against opponent. The hero may make one last action, moral or immoral, against the opponent just before or during the battle. Moral self-revelation. The crucible of the battle produces a self-revelation in the hero. The hero realizes that he has been wrong about himself and wrong towards others, and realizes how to act properly towards others. Because the audience identifies with this character, the self-revelation drives the theme home with great power. Moral decision. The hero chooses between 2 courses of action, thus proving his moral self-revelation. Thematic revelation. In great storytelling, the theme achieves its greatest impact on the audience at the thematic revelation. The thematic revelation is not limited to the hero. Instead, it is an insight that the audience has about how people in general should act and live in the world. This insight breaks the bounds of these particular characters and affects the audience where they live. With a thematic revelation, the audience sees a total design of the story, the full ramification of what it means on a much greater scale than just a few characters. Note that the balance of power between the hero and the main opponent is important not just in character and plot, but also in the moral argument. If the hero is too strong or too good, the opponent does not test him sufficiently to create moral mistakes. If the opposition is too strong and the hero is too simple and unaware, the opponent becomes a spider, weaving a web from which the hero cannot hope to escape. The hero becomes a victim and the opponent is perceived as evil. Okay. Moral argument technique. Balance moral argument with the plot. The single biggest reason a story comes across as preachy is because there is an imbalance between moral argument and plot. You can express the moral argument through the story structure, sequence it perfectly and highlights it with subtle moral dialogue, but if you don't have enough plot to support the moral argument, it will become crashing down as a sermonizing bore. Sermonizing bore. Plot, as you see in chapter 8, is an intricate choreography of actions by the hero and the opponents designed to surprise the audience. It is the element of surprise, of magic, that floats the moral sequence and gives it punch. There's this movie called The Verdict. It's a textbook example of how to use moral argument in a story, with one notable exception, and that exception is instructive. The hero has a strong moral self-revelation when he realizes what has been done to his client and is willing to turn his back on her for money. Okay. Yep. So variants on a moral argument. The basic. Before we do that, let me drink some water. I don't know why, but whenever I work or whenever I am like doing something right, I always bite my tongue. Like I'll place my teeth there, like it's a way to like calm me or something like that. Like, I'll put my teeth on the tongue. So now my tongue at the back there like bruised already. How you're doing? A few more only, okay? Then we're almost done already. I think everybody's sleeping already. Right? Is everybody sleeping? Are you all like just going to sleep soon? Are y'all like just I don't even know what Jen is talking, but he talks it so calmly that I'm just gonna sleep, rest, and just go to sleep. Okay, variants of moral argument. The basic strategy of moral argument has a number of variants depending on the story form, the particular story, and the individual writer. You may find that the more than one kind of moral argument is useful for your story, though, as we shall see. Combining forms is risky. Soothing voice, huh? Soothing voice. Wow, soothing voice. Ooh la la. Okay, so we're talking about variants of moral argument, okay? The first one is good versus bad. In the lowest variation of moral argument, the hero remains good and the opponents bad throughout. This approach is especially common in myth story, action story, and melodramas, which are simple moral tales with easily recognizable characters. The sequence goes like this. The hero has psychological weakness but is essentially good. His opponent is morally flawed and may even be evil. In the competition for the goal, the hero makes mistakes but does not act immorally. The opponent, on the other hand, executes a number of immoral actions. The hero wins the goal simply because he is good. In effect, the two sides of the moral ledger are added up. The good hero wins the game of life. Moral, the good versus bad. Matrix, Star Wars, Forrest Gump, Terminator, Wizard of Oz. Tragedy. Tragedy takes the basic strategy of moral argument and twists it at the end of the points. You give the hero a fatal character flaw at the beginning and a self-revelation that comes too late near the end. The sequence works like this. The community is in trouble. Okay? The hero has great potential but also a great flaw. The hero enters into deep conflict with a powerful or capable opponent. The hero is obsessed with winning and will perform a number of questionable and or immoral acts to do so. The conflict and competition highlights the hero's flaw and show him getting worse. The hero gains a self-revelation, but it comes too late to avoid the destruction. The key to this strategy is heightening the sense of the hero's might have been and lost potential, while also showing that the hero's actions are his responsibility. The sense of might have been is the single most important element of getting audience sympathy, while the fatal character flaw makes the hero responsible and keeps him from becoming a victim. The audience feels sadness at the lost potential, made more acute by the hero's having gained his great insight mere minutes after he could have saved him. But even though he has died or fallen, the audience is left with a deep sense of inspiration from the hero's moral as well as emotional success. Notice also that this strategy represents a crucial shift from classic Greek drama. The fall of the hero is not an inevitable result of a larger impersonal forces, but rather a consequence of the hero's own choices. Like Hamlet, Nixon, The Seven Samurai, American Beauty. Wow. Wuthering Heights. They just give like whole example. Of a movie we don't know, so I'm just gonna skip. Pathos. Pathos is a moral argument that reduces the tragic hero to an everyman and appeals to the audience by showing the beauty of endurance, lost causes, and the doomed man. The main character doesn't go get a self-revelation too late. He isn't capable of one, but he keeps fighting all the way to the end. The moral argument works like this. The hero has a set of beliefs and values that have atrophied. They are out of date or rigid. The hero has a moral need. He's not just a victim. His goal is beyond his grasp, but he doesn't know it. His opponent is far too powerful for him, and may be a system or a set of forces that the hero cannot comprehend. This opposition is not evil. It is simply impersonal or uncaring and very powerful. The hero takes immoral steps to win and refuses to heed any warnings or criticism from his allies. The hero fails to win the goal. The opponents win an overwhelming victory, but the audience sensed that this was not a fair fight. The hero ends in despair. He is a broken man with no self-revelation and dies of heartbreak. Or this is what his moral decision has been reduced to. He takes his own life. The audience feels a deep sense of injustice in the world and sadness at the death of a little man who had no idea what hit him. But they also feel a deep admiration for the beautiful failure, the good fight, and the hero refuses to admit defeat. Wow, these are good movies. I like these kind of movies. Satire and irony. Satire and irony are not the same, but they commonly go together. Satire is the comedy of beliefs, especially those on which an entire society is based. Irony is a form of story logic in which the character gets the opposite of what he wants and take action to get. When it's used over an entire story, not just for a moment, irony is a grand pattern that connects all actions in the story and expresses the philosophy of how the world works. Irony also has a bemused tone that encourages the audience to laugh at the relative incompetence of the character. In the satiric ironic form, you make the moral argument by constantly setting up a contrast between the character who thinks he is being moral, supporting the beliefs of the society, and the effects of those actions and beliefs which are decidedly immoral. The main steps of satiric ironic argument goes like this. Okay, it goes like this. The hero lives within a clearly defined social system. I think this is like Parasite. Typically, at least one character explains in part or in whole the values of which the system is based. The hero believes strongly in the system and is determined to rise to the top. He decides to pursue a goal having to do with ambition or romance. An opponent also believes strongly in the system and its values, goes after the same goal. As the character competes for the goal, their beliefs lead them to a silly and destructive action. The argument of action in the middle of the story comes from a sequence of juxtaposition between characters who insist they are acting morally, expressing the highest ideals of the society, and the disastrous result. In the battle, the pretentiousness and hypocrisy on both sides is exposed. The hero has self-revelation that usually involves questioning the values of system and beliefs. The system's belief lah. The hero or a second character often undercuts the self-revelation, showing that the self-revelation hasn't really been learned. The hero takes moral action that is right personally but usually has no effect on the foolishness or destructiveness of the system. There is a marriage of friendship or love, or suggesting that the couple will form a better microcosm of their own but have little effect on the larger society. The satiric ironic argument is used in Pride and Prejudice, American Beauty, Being John Malkovich. But yeah, I think this one is mainly more on like Parasite lah. Okay. Then they do another one, Emma. I don't really know this story. Black comedy. Ooh, black comedy. That's another one. Black comedy is the comedy of the logic, or more example, or exactly the illogic of a system. This advanced and difficult form of storytelling is designed to show that destruction is the result not so much of individual choice, but of individual caught in a system that is innately destructive. The key feature of this moral argument is that you withhold the self-revelation from the hero to give it more strongly to the audience. This is how black comedy moral argument works. Many characters exist in an organization. Someone explains the rules and logic by which the system operates in great detail. Fight Club, and what's the one already? I forgot. Many of these characters, including the hero, goes after a negative goal that involves killing someone or destroying someone. Each believes strongly in the goal and thinks what he's doing makes complete sense. Oh, in Bruges or something like that. That's the name of the movie. Each believes strongly in the goal and thinks what he's doing makes complete sense. In fact, that is totally illogical. The opponents, also within the system, competes for the same goal and also gives detailed but insane justification. One sane person, usually the ally, continually points out that none of this makes any sense and action will lead to disaster. He functions as a chorus, but no one listens to him. All the characters, including the nominal hero, uses extreme, sometimes even murderous methods to reach the goal. The actions of the character lead to death and destruction for almost all. The battle is intense and destructive, with everyone still thinking he is right. The consequences are death and madness. Wow. No one, including the hero, has a self-revelation, but it's also obvious. It is so obvious that the hero should have had a self-revelation that the audience has it instead. The remaining characters are horribly mimed by the struggle, but immediately resume their efforts to reach the goal. Slightly more positive black comedies end with the sane person watching in horror, either leaving the system or trying to change it. The tricky form is easy to screw up. For the moral argument in black comedy to work, you must first make sure your hero is likable. Otherwise, the comedy becomes an abstraction, an intellectual essay, as your audience backs away from the characters and feel more morally superior to them. You want the audience to get sucked in so that they suddenly discover that they are these characters in some fundamental way and not above them. Besides a likable hero, the best way to pull the audience emotionally into a black comedy is to have your hero speak passionately about the logic of his goal. Writers who want to add some hope to the bleakness of the form, give the lone sane person an alternative to the madness, work out in detail. Something like Goodfellas. Okay. We're almost there. Combining moral arguments. Though unique forms, the various moral arguments are not mutually exclusive. Indeed, an excellent technique used by an advanced storytellers is to combine some of these forms in one story. An attempt to mix tragedy with elements of black comedy and satire or irony in American Beauty. It shows how difficult it is to combine these forms. Though brilliantly in many ways, the story never quite reaches its full potential as a tragedy, black comedy or satire. The major moral arguments are unique variants for a reason. They work in different ways and they have quite different emotional effect on the audience. Putting them together in a seamless way requires extraordinary mastery of the technique. Means don't do it lah. If you really know your story technique, then only you do. But if not, just stick to the normal ones. The unique moral vision. At the most advanced level of moral argument in storytelling is the writer who creates a unique moral vision. This is a big picture moral argument, but it's not moral argument alone. The expertise, the craft of these writers shows itself in webs of character, plot, story world, and symbol that are as broad as detailed as their moral argument. A unique moral vision is also present in a few blockbuster film. If you think these films are huge hit primarily because of their visual effects, you are mistaken. In Star Wars, George Lucas creates a modern-day amalgam of Eastern and Western morality, combining a Western hero with a Zen-like knighthood and a morality known as the Force. Obviously, there is a much lesser advanced moral argument than Scarlet Letter, but the attempt is made, and its brevity has helped give the Star Wars film universal appeal. As simplistic as it is, "May the Force be with you" has been for many in the audience a creed they could live by. Similarly, The Godfather not only portrays the world of the mafia in 1940s America, but also lays out a moral system based on the modern businesses and modern warfare. Tagline like "I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse." It's not personal, it's business. And "keep your friends close and your enemies closer" are the catechism for the modern American version of Prince. Like Star Wars, The Godfather is dealing in moral shorthand, but you should not forget that the attempt to lay out a moral system in the story, with at least some success, is a major source of appeal of these stories. Okay, cool. Moral argument in a dialogue. Story structure is the main way that you make your moral argument in a good story, but it isn't the only way. You also need to use dialogue. When you let structure do the heavy lifting to make the moral case, you free up the dialogue to do what it does best, which is to provide subtlety and emotional force. I will explain in detail how to write moral dialogue in chapter 10. For now, let's look at the best place to use it in a story. The most common place to use dialogue to express moral argument is when an ally criticizing the hero for taking an immoral action while trying to win the goal. The ally contends that the hero's actions are wrong. The hero, who hasn't yet have a self-revelation, defends his action. A second way that moral argument comes out in dialogue is in a conflict between the hero and the opponent. This can happen anywhere over the course of the story, but it's more likely during a battle scene. A classic example of a moral argument in a battle scene occurs in The Hustler. I don't know. In It's a Wonderful Life, a great moral argument between the hero and opponent occurs much earlier in the story. So the great advantage of an early moral argument between the hero and the opponent is that it gives the audience a clue about what values are really at stake, and it allows the drama to build. A third place to use moral argument and mark of a really good writing is a scene in which the main opponent gives a moral justification for his action, even though he's wrong. Why is moral dialogue from the opponent is so crucial to making your overall moral argument? Well, a purely evil opponent is someone who is inherently bad and therefore mechanical and uninteresting. In most real conflict, there is no clear good and evil, right and wrong. In a good story, both hero and opponent believe that they are right, and both have reason for believing so. They are also both wrong, though in different ways. By giving your opponent a strong, though wrong justification, you avoid the simplistic good versus hero good hero versus evil opponent pattern, and give depth to the opponent. And because the hero is only as good as the person he fights, you give depth to your hero as well. You can see an excellent example of opponent's moral argument in The Verdict, where opposing or even in the battle scene in The Few Good Men Colonel justifies ordering the killing of a marine by saying that he's the last baton against the barbarians coming over the gate. So the key to a good moral dialogue by the opponent is to not set him up as a straw man, an opponent who appears formidable but is really hollow. Never give your opponent an obviously weak argument. Give him the best, most compelling argument you can. Make sure he's right about some things, but also make sure there is a fatal flaw in his logic. So that's moral argument. So now this is just writing exercise, okay? So designing principle. Start by turning the designing principle of your story into a theme line. The theme line is your view about right and wrong actions. In this story, stated in one sentence, as you look again at the designing principle, focus on its key action and their moral effects. Theme line techniques. Look for any techniques like symbols that can condense your moral statement to one line, or can encapsulate the unique structure you will give to your story. Moral choice. Write down the key choice the hero must make near the end of the story. Moral problem. After reviewing your work on premise, state in one line the central moral argument the central moral problem your hero will confront throughout the story. Characters as variation on a theme. Starting with the hero and the main opponent, describes how each major character approaches the central moral problem of the story in different way. Values in conflict. List the key values of each of the moral characters and explain how those values will come into conflict as each character tries to reach the goal. So, moral argument. Detail the moral argument you will make through the structure of the story using the following sequence. The hero beliefs and values. Restate your hero's essential beliefs and values. Moral weakness. Moral weakness. What is your hero main weakness when it comes to acting towards others? Moral need. What must your hero learn by the end of the story about the right way to act and live in the world? First immoral action. Describe the first action your hero takes that hurts someone in the story. Make sure it is an outgrowth of your hero's great moral weakness. Desire. Reinstate your hero's specific goal. Drive. List the actions your hero will take to win the goal. Immoral actions. In what way, if any, are these actions immoral? The criticism. For any immoral action, describe the criticism in any that the hero receives. Justification. How does the hero justify each immoral action? Attack by ally. Explain in detail the main moral attack that the ally makes against the hero. Again, write down how the hero justifies himself. Obsessive drive. Describe when and how your hero becomes obsessed with winning. Put another way, is there a moment when your hero decides to do almost anything to win? Immoral actions. While obsessed with winning, what immoral step does your hero take? Criticism. Describe the criticism, if any, that the hero faces for these actions. And justification. Explain how the hero justifies his method. Battle. During the final battle, how do you express which value, the heroes or the opponents, are superior in this fight? Final action against opponent. Does your hero takes a final action against the opponent? Whether moral or immoral, before or during the battle. Moral self-revelation. What, if anything, does your hero learn morally at the end of the story? Be sure that this insight is about how to act properly towards others. Moral decision. Does the hero make a decision between two courses of action near the end of the story? Thematic revelation. Can you think of a story event in which you express your vision of how human beings should act in some other way than through the self-revelation of your hero? Okay. That's basically like the whole thing lah. And that's it for chapter 5. We are done. And I'll stop there for this stream for today. Yeah. Moral argument, very interesting. I don't know whether you get what I mean or not, whether you get what I say, but I think most of you who's watching this also almost sleeping already lah. My mom, my girlfriend, Nico. Well, yeah, that's the end of chapter 5, and most likely this anatomy of story, I think just part 3 of this I think is good enough already lah. If I go any more, I think you all will just continue to sleep and just listen only. I'll do something different lah. Not Lego, not reading book, but maybe play game. Do you usually lean towards the good or the evil? I don't know. In terms of the story, I would want the evil to be as good as not as good, but as complex as the good lah. So I like a film where there is both good perspective of the good and the evil, and it doesn't necessarily it's like good versus evil lah, but more towards like the complexities of perspectives and how you are able to show that in the story. Because I think and it has to be relatable to the audience lah. I feel like movies that are very relatable, even though like you can understand why these characters make the choices that they make, but at the end of the day you believe that they took a wrong they took a wrong way lah, but it could be an option to choose from, you know what I mean? So say for example like Blue Jasmine. No, Little Big Women, I think that's a good example. Or I don't know, maybe Yeah, I think those kind of movies lah. It's more towards like you can understand where all the characters are. Like Blue Jasmine, you can understand why the characters are doing the way they are because of the past, and some characters are just evil, but not necessarily on the husband lah, but more towards like the two sisters. I mean, like it's between these two sisters, right, in Blue Jasmine. So you can understand the choices that they make. But sometimes I think this movie is more like a tragedy. So yeah, I think good versus evil. I think Lord of the Rings law. But you don't really understand why the bad are bad. They are just bad for the reasons of bad. But like, say for example, if Boromir or Saruman, something like that, you sort of understand why they turn bad. Okay. I think the best one is Avengers lah. And Thanos. I feel like you can understand why Thanos do what he does is because Thanos he wants to wipe out because there is a certain value that he believes, but you can identify with, something that, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Or like Batman versus Joker also lah. Like the Batman films, you can understand like why Joker does the things that he do, but you can also understand why Batman does the things that he do. But you side towards the good one. You don't side versus the evil one, because in terms of the moral argument, that that there are some values that you live by, that kind of thing. I don't know whether did I answer your question or not, but yes. The Crown is also a good show, but I haven't really watched it. I only watched like few episodes only. Then after that, yeah, I never continue lah. But I should continue. I think it's a good show. But it's more towards history lah. For me, show wise, I don't really know what is a good show, but so far there is a few lah, but I can't really think of it at the top of my head, not hand. But yeah, that's the end of the Anatomy of Story. Most likely I'll continue writing the badminton story. I think it could be a good one, and maybe sell it to like production companies or get funding. Or maybe I'll just make it myself. Hire a team of people to create a short film, or sell it to Netflix lah. Write and then sell it, or just make it and then win competitions and get it funded. Then you can make money and use that money to create a bigger film. That's the goal lah. That's the dream. But yeah. I guess I'll just stop there today, the stream for today. So next week I'm gonna do the Hari Raya ads, just review to it. I'll try to find all the ads that the big companies have been coming out with, and then we'll review it, watch it together, review it. That would be nice. Other than that, yeah, next week onwards I'll do a review on movies that I like, and as you can see from my poster, maybe I'll do one video on Lord of the Rings itself. It will be a challenge, but maybe just start off with just normal movies first lah. Lord of the Rings, I just want to save it, I want to save it to really like write down what I want to say and then just, do a review on it. But I don't know, when I do review, I usually write it down. I write down what are my thoughts, and think about it in that sense, then only do a video. So I'm going back to how I did my reviews before this lah. So I'm gonna do something like that. So yeah, I'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think that's my plan for this month. And the following month, I don't know, I haven't really think about it yet. But I think I'm just gonna keep it consistent with content now, I guess lah. Don't want to just keep changing. But I feel like maybe doing product review, there are so many equipments that I have, so many like how to make a video or stuff like that. Maybe I can do something like that, or maybe just do a live stream on that lah, talking about live stream, just like a longer video where I can like talk about how do people do production and stuff like that. But I don't know, let's see how it goes. So far I'm just thinking of what I'm gonna do next only, not in the future. Don't wanna think too far, just I'm still just keeping it consistent, that's all. So far it's already like 5 months of doing consistent videos, and I'm quite happy about it. But just gotta keep consistent lah, and try to make more videos, and try to keep it interesting and engaging as well. And I feel like reading is not really engaging, it's not really like, it's not something that I can back and forth kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Or maybe gaming, maybe play some games, see how that goes. But anyway, I think that's about it for today. I guess I'm changing a little bit on the timing, I guess. I'm doing like Tuesdays and Thursdays now. Tuesdays for the video, and then Thursdays for the stream. Maybe I'll keep it at that time. I feel more comfortable doing these 2 days instead, rather than one on the weekends and one on weekdays. I feel Tuesdays and Thursdays I at least got some free time lah, so I can do those videos. But I'll see how it goes. Change a little bit and see whether is it good or not. But yeah, as a YouTuber, I have to be a bit more engaging, a bit more, do more stuff, but I'm not really doing a lot of stuff. We'll see how it goes lah. Yeah. Alright. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have a good night's sleep. Sleep well. If you haven't drink tea, maybe drink some tea before you sleep. If not, drink some water before you sleep. Good night. Don't drink too much, because later you feel very bloated after you drink too much. So just sleep early. Tomorrow is a work day. Alright. Good night, guys. See you. Bye bye. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next one.